All right, class. Welcome to our first attempt at flipping the classroom. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read the story that instead of us reading it together in class tomorrow so that you'll already know what we're going to talk about. Effectively, what we want to talk about for this story is there's going to be a decision to be made about who is the rightful heir to the throne. I'm going to read the story. It's going to have the whole setup. You come to class, we'll have a discussion/debate about it, and this will be the impetus for our writing assignment tomorrow. So let's get started so I can get through here in 15 minutes or less. All right. So this is called A Medieval Romance, and it's by the famous Mark Twain. Chapter 1, The Secret Rebuild. All right. It was night. Stillness reigned in the grand old feudal castle of Klingenstein. The year 1222 was drawing to a close. Far away up in the tallest of the castle's towers was a single light glimmered. A secret council was being held there. The stern old lord of Klingenstein sat in a chair of state mediating. Presently he said with a tender accent, "My daughter." A young man of noble presence, clad from head to heel in knightly mail, answered, "Speak, father." "My daughter, the time has come for the revealing of the mystery that hath puzzled you all your young life. Know then that it has its birth in the matters which I shall now unfold. My brother Ulrich is the great Duke of Brandenburg. Our father, on his deathbed, decreed that if no son were born to Ulrich, the succession should pass to my house, provided a son were born to me. And further, in case no son were born to either, but only daughters, then the succession should pass to Ulrich's daughter, if she proved stainless. If she did not, my daughter should succeed, if she retained a blameless name. And so I and my old wife here prayed fervently for the good boon of a son, but the prayer was vain. You were born to us. I was in despair. I saw the mighty prize slipping from my grasp, the splendid dream vanishing away, and I had been so hopeful. 5 years had Ulrich lived in wedlock, and yet his wife had borne her no heir of either sex. But hold, I said, all is not lost. A saving scheme had shot athwart in my brain. You were born at midnight. Only the leech, the nurse, and 6 waiting women knew your sex. I hanged them all, every one, before an hour had sped. Next morning all the barony went mad with rejoicing over the proclamation that a son was born to Klingenstein, an heir to a mighty Brandenburg, and all the secret has been kept, and well the secret has been kept. Your mother's own sister nursed your infancy, and from that time forward we feared nothing. When you were 10 years old, a daughter was born to Ulrich. We grieved, but hoped for good results from measles, or physicians, or other natural enemies of infancy, but were always disappointed. She lived, she throve. Heaven's malison upon her, but it is nothing. We are all safe. For have we not a son? And is not our son the future Duke? Our well-beloved Conrad, is it not so? For women of 28 years, as you are, my child, none other name than that hath ever fallen upon you. Now it has come to pass that age hath laid its hand upon my brother, and he waxes feebly. The cares of state do tax him sore. Therefore he wills that you shall come to him and be already Duke, in act, though yet not in name. Your servitors are ready, your journey forth tonight. Now listen well, remember every word I say. There is a law as old as Germany that if any woman sit for a single instant on the great ducal chair before she hath been absolutely crowned in presence of the people, she shall die. So heed my words. Pretend humility. Pronounce your judgment from the premier's chair which stands at the foot of the throne. Do this until you are crowned and safe. It is not likely that your sex will ever be discovered, but still it is a part of wisdom to make all things as safe as may be in this treacherous earthly life. Oh, my father, is it for this my life hath been a lie? Why is it I must cheat my unoffending cousin of her rights? Spare me, father, spare your child. What, huzzy? Is this my reward for that august fortune my brain has wrought for thee? By the bones of my father, this puling sentiment of thine but ill accords with my humour. Betake thee to the Duke instantly, and beware how thou meddlest with my purpose. Let this suffice of the conversation. It is enough for us to know that the prayers, entreaties, and the tears of the gentle-natured girl availed nothing. They nor anything could move the stout old lord of Klingenstein, and so at last, with a heavy heart, the daughter saw the castle gates close behind her, and she found herself riding away in the darkness, surrounded by a knightly array of armed vassals and brave following of servants. The old baron sat silent for many minutes after his daughter's departure, and he turned to his wife and said, "Dame, our matters seem speeding fairly. It is full 3 months since I sent the shrewd and handsome Count Dunstan on his devilish mission to my brother's daughter Constance. If you fail, we are not wholly safe, but if you do succeed, no power can bar out our girl from being Duchess, even though ill fortune should decree she never should be Duke. My heart is full of bodings, yet all may still be well. Tush, woman! Leave the owls to croak, to bed with ye, and dream of Brandenburg and grandeur. Chapter 2. Festivities and Tears. 6 days after the occurrences related in the above chapter, the brilliant capital of the Duchy of Brandenburg was resplendent with military pageantry and noisy with the rejoicings of loyal multitudes, for Conrad, the heir to the crown, was come. The old duke's heart was full of happiness, for Conrad's handsome person and graceful bearing had won his love at once. The great halls of Tai Palace were thronged with nobles who welcomed Conrad bravely, and so bright and happy did all things seem that he felt his fears and sorrows passing away and giving place to a comforting contentment. But in a remote apartment of the palace a scene of a different nature was transpiring. By a window stood the duke's only child, the Lady Constance. Her eyes were red and swollen and full of tears. She was alone. Presently she fell to weeping anew, and said aloud, in a foreshadowing way, "The villain Detson is gone, has fled the dukedom. I could not believe it at first, but alas, it is too true, and I loved him so. I dared to love him, though I knew that the duke my father would never let me wed him. I loved him, but now I hate him. With all of my soul I hate him. Oh, what is to become of me? I am lost, lost, lost. I shall go mad." Chapter 3. The plot thickens. A few months drifted by. All men published the praises of young Conrad's government, and extolled the wisdom of his judgments, the mercifulness of his sentences, and the modesty for which he bore himself in his great office. The old duke soon gave everything into his hands, and sat apart and listened with proud satisfaction while his heir delivered the decrees of the crown from the seat of the premier. It seemed plain that one so loved and praised and honored of all men as Conrad was, could not be otherwise than happy. But strange enough he was not, for he saw the dismay that the Princess Constance had begun to love him. The love of the rest of the world was happy fortune for him, but this was freighted with danger. And he saw moreover that the delighted duke had discovered his daughter's passion likewise, and was already dreaming of a marriage. Every day somewhat of the deep sadness that had been in the princess's face faded away. Every day hope and animation beamed brighter from her eye, and by even vagrant smiles visited the face that had been so troubled. Conrad was appalled. He bitterly cursed himself for having yielded to the instinct that made him seek the companionship of one of his own sex when he was new and a stranger in the palace, when he was sorrowful and yearned for a sympathy such as only a woman can give or feel. He now began to avoid his cousin, but this only made matters worse, for naturally enough, the more he avoided her, the more she cast herself in his way. He marveled at this at first, and next it startled him. The girl haunted him, she hunted him, she happened upon him at all times and in all places, in the night as well as in the day. She seemed singularly anxious. There was surely a mystery somewhere. This could not go on forever. All the world was talking about it. The duke was beginning to look perplexed. Poor Conrad was becoming a very ghost through dread and dire distress. One day, as he was emerging from a private anteroom attached to the picture gallery, Constance confronted him, and seizing both his hands in hers, exclaimed, "Oh, why do you avoid me? What have I done? What have I said, to lose your kind opinion of me? For surely I had it once. Conrad, do not despise me, but pity a tortured heart. I cannot hold the words unspoken longer, lest they kill me. I love you, Conrad. There, despise me if you must, but they would be uttered." Conrad was speechless. Constance hesitated a moment, and then, misinterpreting his silence, a wild gladness flamed in her eyes, and she flung her arms about his neck and said, "You relent, you can love me, you will love me. Oh, say you will, my own, my worshipped Conrad." Conrad groaned aloud. A sickly pallor overspread his countenance, and he trembled like an aspen. Presently, in desperation, he thrust the poor girl from him and cried, "You know not what you ask. It is forever and ever impossible." And then he fled like a criminal and left the princess stupefied with amazement. A minute afterwards she was crying and sobbing there, and Conrad was crying and sobbing in his chamber. Both were in despair, but saved ruin staring them in the face. By and by Constance rose slowly to her feet and moved away, saying, "To think that he was despising my love at the very moment that I thought he was melting his cruel heart. I hate him. He spurned me. Did this man. He spurned me from him like a dog." All right, chapter 4. The awful revelation. Time passed on. A settled sadness rested once more upon the countenance of the good duke's daughter. She and Conrad were seen together no more now, and the Duke grieved at this. But as the weeks wore away, Conrad's color came back to his cheeks and his old-time vivacity to his eye, and he administered the government with a clear and steadily ripening wisdom. Presently a strange whisper began to be heard about the palace. It grew louder, it spread further, the gossip of the city got hold of it, it swept the dukedom, and this is what the whisper said: "The Lady Constance has given birth to a child." When the Lord of Klingelston heard it, he swung his plumed helmet thrice around his head and shouted, "Long live Duke Conrad, for lo, his crown is sure. From this day forward, Detson has done his errand well, and the good scoundrel shall be rewarded." And he spread the tidings far and wide, and for 48 hours no soul in the barony but did dance and sing, carouse and illuminate, to celebrate the great event, and at all proud and happy old Klugenstein's expense. Chapter 5. The Frightful Catastrophe. The trial was at hand. All the great lords and barons of Brandenburg were assembled in the Hall of Justice in the ducal palace. No spaces were left unoccupied where there was room for a spectator to stand or sit. Conrad, clad in purple and ermine, sat in the premier's chair, and on either side sat the great judges of the realm. The old duke had sternly commanded that the trial of his daughter should proceed without favor, and then he had taken to his bed broken-hearted. His days were numbered. Poor Conrad had begged as for his life, that he might be spared the misery of sitting in judgment upon his own cousin's crime, but it did not avail. The saddest heart in all the great assemblage was in Conrad's breast. The gladdest was in his father's, for unknown to his daughter, Conrad, the old Baron Klingelston, was come, and was among the crowd of nobles triumphant in the swelling fortunes of his house. After the heralds had made the due proclamation and the other preliminaries had followed, the venerable Lord Chief Justice said, "Prisoner, stand forth." The unhappy princess rose and stood and bowed before the vast multitude. The Lord Chief Justice continued, "Most noble lady, before the great judges of this realm, it has been charged and proven that out of holy wedlock your grace had given birth unto a child, and by our ancient law the penalty is death, excepting in one sole contingency, whereupon his grace, the acting duke, our good Lord Conrad, will advertise you in his solemn sentence now. Wherefore give heed." Conrad stretched forth the reluctant scepter, and in the same moment the womanly heart beneath his robe yearned prettily towards the doomed prisoner, and the tears came into his eyes. He opened his lips to speak, but the Lord Chief Justice said quickly, "Not there, your grace, not there. It is not lawful to pronounce judgment upon any of the ducal line save from the ducal throne." A shudder went into the heart of poor Conrad, and a tremor shook the iron frame of his old father likewise. Conrad had not been crowned. Dared he profane the throne? He hesitated and turned pale with fear, but it must be done. Wondering eyes were already upon him. They would be suspicious eyes if he hesitated longer. He ascended the throne. Presently he stretched forth the scepter again, and he said, "Prisoner, in the name of our sovereign lord Ulrich, Duke of Brandenburg, I proceed to the solemn duty that hath devolved upon me. Give heed to my words. By the ancient law of the land, except you produce the partner of your guilt and deliver him up to the executioner, you must surely die. Embrace this opportunity. Save yourself while yet you may. Name the father of your child." A solemn hush fell upon the great court, a silence so profound that men could hear their own hearts beat. When the princess slowly turned, with eyes gleaming with hate, and pointing her finger straight at Conrad, she said, "Thou art the man." An appalling conviction of this hopeless peril struck a chill to Conrad's heart like the chill of death itself. What power on earth could save him? To disprove the charge he must reveal that he was a woman, and for an uncrowned woman to sit on the ducal chair was death. At one and the same, he and his grim old father swooned and fell to the ground. The remainder of this thrilling and eventful story will not be found in this or any other publication, either now or at any time in the future. The truth is, I've got my hero or heroine into such a particularly close place that I do not see how I'm ever going to get him or her out of it again, and therefore I'll wash my hands of the whole business and leave that person to get the best way that offers, or else stay there. I thought it was going to be easy enough to straighten out the little difficulty, but it looks different now. Sincerely, the end. Samuel Clemens, known as Mark Twain. Alright, so that's our story in less than 15 minutes, and you heard the assignment. You're supposed to listen to this, or read it, so when you come into class, you know what we're doing, and we're going to talk about it, we're going to discuss it, and we're going to say, hey, who should be the rightful queen or king? What should happen here? How would you handle it? What if you were in charge? And we'll make an argument based upon the reading to support why you think your solution is the best solution. All right, thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.